Joining us now on the Oakland County Megacast, Steve Waterfield. He's the Director of Athletics over at Oakland University. Thank you so much for being with us. What a crazy year you and your team have been having.
It has been a crazy year. Let me say, though, when you said it was Friday, I was pretty excited. That was going to be the highlight of the day. It feels like a Friday after 3 days of the work week, or not even 3 full days. But yeah, it's been crazy. I tell folks all the time, though, number one, I have a wonderful staff, coaches, student athletes that understand this is a very fluid situation. And the other part is we're one of about 357 or so schools that are going through this. And so we're not alone, and we're going to work through it together. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The tunnel just keeps maybe getting a little longer than any of us would hope.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And I know that you and your team have gone to great lengths to try to, contain the spread of COVID. But recently, both of your basketball coaches, it was announced that they tested positive. What has that done to your basketball program?
Sure. So as we announced, both Coach Campy and Coach Tungate tested positive. Not a surprise. I think a few days later, Coach Izzo announced he had tested positive. And so what happens is then we do through our head team physician, through Henry Ford Sports Medicine, we do some testing and contact tracing of those individuals. And a large group has to quarantine because within a basketball practice, it's challenging to maintain social distance. In fact, probably impossible to do that. And so they quarantine, and you hit the pause button for 14 days, and then you get them back to practice and competition as safely and as quickly as you can through the medical process. So we're not the only school that's dealt with it, not only within the Horizon League, but nationally. And there'll be more that will have to go through it once this season starts a week from today. I think actually in, it's almost 12 noon. We'll be tipping off in less than probably 10 to 15 minutes next week at Xavier in an MTE event on Fox Sports 1. So it's right around the corner.
Hey, that's the school my nephew goes to. So.
All right, I got to give you bragging rights then. Let's hope we can pull off a win.
There you go. What keeps you awake at night? Are you afraid of an outbreak? Because like you said, it's almost impossible to completely avoid any contact with COVID-19. It's invisible. You don't even know when you're coming in contact with it.
Yeah, I think the thing that short term, it's what are we doing, and are we doing what we can to keep everyone as safe as possible? And it's you're not going to have 100% success doing that through everyone's best efforts. I tell student athletes and coaches, we can do everything right, and we still might have COVID positives. But what are we doing? And I feel very good that we're doing, if not what the Horizon League peers are doing, but oftentimes more. When we're testing our basketball student athletes 3 times a week with PCR tests, and now with the state order, it's going to be 6 times a week, at least through December 8th. One of the things that I'm tracking on, and one of my biggest concerns is the mental impact this has on our student athletes and our staff, but mainly our student athletes. And what we need to make sure that they get resources. We have a lot of great resources on campus with the Graham Counseling Center and a performance psychologist that works half-time with the athletics department, but years 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, I think not just for student athletes, but in society in general. I mean, that's really what I worry about. I mean, this has been a challenging, will be probably close to, if not a little over 12 months, but it could even be a more challenging 24, 36, 48 months after that. And what can we do to try to mitigate those challenges?
Yeah, and can we talk a little bit more about the impact on some of the student athletes? I think most have done an amazing job to try to isolate as much as possible, because you don't want to be that teammate who tests positive. But on the flip side of that, if you are, now, before we didn't talk about health issues, there were HIPAA rules and violations, but now it's pretty common who is the person who is infected, and your name is out there and you have to do the contact tracing. So do you want to talk a little bit more about the student athletes and the impact for them that this is having on them and them trying to isolate? Because I will say, I think on one side of the coin, you do have more student athletes that aren't out partying and doing things that normal college kids would do because they want to play sports.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The vast majority are doing everything they possibly can to stay safe. This is just a challenging situation for all of us. I mean, what's normal? Hey, going out to lunch with friends, you can do it, or you could have done it before the order came into play today, but there's risk involved. Even if you wore a mask in the car, even if you wore a mask at lunch until you eat, there's just risk involved. And those are challenging situations. I think if I transported myself back to when I was 18 to 22 years old, and that's becoming longer and longer ago, what you expect to do is so much different now, given what you have to do to try to stay safe and keep your teammates safe. I tell the student athletes and our SAC officers, our SAC president, Adeline Swiderski, a softball student athlete on a student athlete advisory council, that SAC call earlier this month, basically said, hey, we're all in this together. It's not just keeping our team safe, it's keeping each other safe. So whether it's basketball with soccer and track and field with softball, or it's all part of that connection and how do we do everything we can so all of us have a chance to compete, starting with basketball next week and then moving to next semester with all of our sports will at some point be competing.
Steve Waterfield with us. He's the Director of Athletics at Oakland University, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. And we talk about COVID-19's impact on the athletics programs, but also these students are not just playing in the school athletics. They're also students at Oakland University. And it's been a tough year for students, whether they are student athletes or just in the general student population. How have your student athletes fared over the course of this semester academically, dealing with the pandemic and preparing for sports seasons or being involved in sports seasons?
Yeah, so our student athletes do a great job academically, and I'm so proud of them. I always say that graduating is the top goal when you come to Oakland University, and while you're pursuing your degree, let's win a few conference championships along the way and have some athletic success. And they do a wonderful job doing it. I think remote's obviously a challenge. As a father of a 7th and 5th grader, it's a challenge at that level. It's a challenge in college. They're doing the best they possibly can. And they do what we can do under the circumstances to get as most out of the programs and the classes. I get updates on academic progress, and it's been very good. The same as I would expect it to see if they were having all their classes in person. But it's still a challenge, and I think, I don't want to say they're used to it, but having gone through the tail end of winter semester remote, I think they're more accustomed to what works and what they need to focus on to have success. And so, but they do well. And I think all of us look forward to having more of that conventional college experience, but we're having as good of experience as we can given the circumstances we're working with.
Well, they are definitely, going to have some stories to tell their kids in the future about living and surviving during the pandemic. When we're talking about athletes, though, if you go through another COVID outbreak and you have to quarantine, these students need to be able to continue to condition and to train. What is being done? Can they do that in the middle of a quarantine or a shutdown, like one-on-one or on their own, so that they can keep their skills up?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, when you're quarantining, so you've been determined to be a close contact and you're not positive, but you got that 14-day period, you're going to be either quarantining on campus or off. That's what they had kind of indicated in their plan. And it becomes challenging. You can do stuff within, I guess, the area of quarantine, whether it's calisthenics or certain weight workouts, and depending on the sport, maybe a little bit of skill related work, but it's going to be on your own. If you're in isolation, obviously we don't want them to do anything physically until they get cleared by our doctor and that the cardio and the cardiac piece of it's all cleared. But it's really difficult. When you add a team sport, you could have 14 basketball student athletes each doing things on their own, but until you get together and can actually see how it works in concert, it becomes a challenge. So, and that's maybe one of the most difficult from a mental standpoint is that athletics is so important to them. I mean, you're a Division I athlete, and it's really intertwined in their identity. And then to put a pause for 14 days And then to know that your season's coming up and the anxiety that comes in a typical season to get ready, knowing that are you falling behind? Are you not getting the training you want? That's a lot to manage, and our head coaches and student athletes do a really great job doing it. And it's not, like I said, it's not ideal, but it's just what we have to do.
Steve Waterfield joining us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the Director of Athletics at Oakland University. And on top of the sports that are on the court or on a field, we're also, Oakland University also has a very strong esports program. How has that program been faring over the course of the pandemic? Is it continuing to grow as more people are keeping a distance and competing and maybe taking an interest in the esports during the pandemic?
Absolutely. It's been about a year since we announced it, beginning of December, as the first varsity esports program in Michigan, Division I varsity program in Michigan. And I've been just exceedingly impressed with the accomplishments of the team. Head coach Carl Leone has done a great job since he started in March. And I mean, he's had to start as a first-time head coach in a pandemic and work through that. And he's done just a sterling job. The support that we've gotten through athletics and on campus with communications and marketing. But a few weeks ago, our Rocket League team, which every Rocket League player, which think soccer with cars is the way I look at it, is in the top 3% of all Rocket League players in the United States. They won the inaugural Michigan Esports Rocket League Championship. So we won our first conference title for this academic year. It was esports. So proud of those student athletes and what they've done. And we will continue to grow that. We will continue to look for ways, especially in a pandemic, to grow it. But we can't wait till once we can have events with people in place and in person to have these what they call LAN tournaments, where we can have folks come watch in person. But it's growing. We're looking at ways to try to expand roster sizes next year because of the interest and growth. In the club level, which is managed through recreation and well-being, Greg Jordan and his staff does a great job as well, and really growing that culture of esports at Oakland University, which is so important to me.
So we had you on the show a few months ago, and we were talking about this. And I have to say, since then, I've been having these conversations with more and more people about the industry of esports and the fact that you're offering this over at Oakland University. And you get parents look at you like you're crazy. They're like, what are you talking about? Because, a lot of parents are complaining about their kids playing so many video games. I'm like, no, actually, they can make a lot of money. And now there are, sports. So what has that conversation been like for you and members of your team trying to market this to the general population?
I think the first part is we just say this is a skill and a talent like every other sport we have. It's all different. They're all unique. They all take different gifts and talents that you work on. But from a teamwork, communication, skill, decision making, manual dexterity, all those things that you need, they have that at very high levels within the United States. And so there's a talent there. This isn't, I think the stereotype isn't at all what it is. And so understanding that it is actually a very social game, a lot of teamwork and communication, and that to perform at the highest level is a gift and a talent that we celebrate and that we want to encourage folks to achieve and pursue. And one of the things that makes esports really special to me is it's so inclusive. It can bring in so many different people from different backgrounds and abilities, genders, that all can come together and compete. And so to me, it's almost a reflection of what we want as an athletic department and what we want as a kind of a sports culture to bring all these folks in. But there is that question of what, but I think it also helps because I watch my own sons play it and see what they do. And I understand that this is just going to continue to grow in popularity and interest, not just within Michigan, but the United States and then the world.
Are there scholarships available for some of these student athletes then?
Yeah, so we offered up to $24,000 this past year in scholarship money. So most of them receive partial scholarships that our head coach, like every other head coach we have here, awards and distributes to the participants on the team based on skill level and other factors that come into it. And so we awarded that much. We hope to hopefully grow that amount so we can even award more. But every esports student athlete is coming here and paying out of pocket, the majority out of pocket, to come to Oakland University. But that scholarship makes a difference in the fact that you're getting a scholarship to participate as a Division I varsity student athlete is a real distinction that really provides, in my mind, a competitive advantage. And what I hope when they get here, kind of an experience advantage when they get to Oakland.
So post-college, I saw an interview once with someone from the Navy, and they were saying they're looking for these students to actually be able to recruit them to go into the military because of their skills on the video game level. Post-college, do you think this opens up opportunities for students that maybe if they didn't have a team like the Esports at Oakland University, they wouldn't normally have? Is it making Oakland University attractive to some of the recruiters?
Yes, I think it creates opportunities that folks want to hire these people. They want to hire student athletes to begin with because of the level of teamwork and skill and what they've displayed to accomplish. But esports with the armed services, very popular, a kind of connection there. I also think there's ways in the general gaming world, and whether you play professionally or you want to get into kind of the gaming footprint and the gaming profession, with esports, there's a lot of ways and segues if you've been actually playing it at a high level competitively. So there are career opportunities now, and what I hope is we can look to develop some academic courses and some work that we can grow the esports piece of it, not just the playing part, but the administrative part of it, the management part of it, much like you have sport management and others type of degrees, that it can be esports based, because there are tremendous career opportunities in this space and related to this space.
Steve Waterfield with us here. He's the Director of Athletics over at Oakland University. Just another minute or so with you before we let you go. I know this is a very early in the game time, but now we're hearing that vaccines are on the horizon. Are there any early discussions about the possibility of some of your student athletes maybe having to have the vaccine in order to play sports going forward once the vaccine is widely available?
Yeah, I have not been part of any conversations at the Horizon League or have not seen anything at the NCAA level regarding the vaccine and providing that vaccine to student athletes. And I'm sure, hopefully, that vaccine gets available to the general public. And there's a priority that obviously student athletes aren't going to be at the top line with the healthcare workers and others to get that. But as we have those conversations and we find out from the state and local areas and how we can get it distributed to our student athletes and offer to them, we will certainly do that. There's been nothing that would indicate that it's mandatory. Really, our focus is on the testing piece of it and trying to do as much as we can testing, then educating, and just good hygiene and the things that all of us are being asked to do, socially distancing, et cetera, over now 9 months or so and heading into however much longer we need to do that.
Well, we so appreciate having you and your team be a part of the community and all the good work that you're trying to do over there to keep the athletes safe. College athletes, I mean, they have such a bright future ahead of them. And so it's so important for us to try to figure out ways to keep the game still going. So thank you to Steve Waterfield, the Director of Athletics over at Oakland University. We so appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, Sarah. Having the opportunity. Have a great rest of the week. Stay safe.